Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're setting aside the deerstalker myths, We're diving straight into the core methods of history's greatest, consulting detective.
That's right. We're treating the Sherlock Holmes case files almost like a scientific manual.
Exactly. The mission is to really unpack the science behind it all, observation, pure deduction, and applying some pretty obscure knowledge.
And it starts with a fundamental revolt against just casually seeing things. Holmes didn't really see himself as just solving crimes. He was more of a scientific analyzer of data.
Right. The world for him was just packed with clues most people miss.
And he makes that point right away, doesn't he? With that famous challenge about the stairs.
Oh yeah, the steps up to 221B Baker Street, asking Watson, who'd climbed them hundreds of times, how many there were.
And the answer, I don't know. That says it all.
It's the difference he draws between seeing and observing. Seeing is just passive, automatic, light hits the eye.
But observation, that's intentional. It's analytical. It's purposeful. Holmes knew there were 17 steps because he observed them, not just saw them. He turned that raw input into actual knowledge.
And that active observation is what gave him that almost, magical reputation early on, like figuring out a visitor's job before they even open their mouth.
Yeah, but it's never magic, is it? He calls it simplicity itself. Though, simple only if you're trained to look. If you're actively scanning for clues, the facts just sort of pop out.
Like diagnosing that visitor as a doctor.
Exactly. What were the facts? First, that faint smell, but distinctive. Iodoform, a common antiseptic back then used in surgeries.
Okay, smell of disinfectant.
Second, a very specific mark. Nitrate of silver stain, black, on the right forefinger, used in cauterizing other medical stuff. Stains like crazy.
Smells medical, handles medical chemicals. Pretty likely.
But he always wants confirmation, doesn't he? The final bit, the bulge in the top hat, needs a bit of geometric observation, but it shows where the stethoscope was tucked away.
Ah, okay. So you link those three things: scent, stain, shape, and the profession's clear. Irrefutable.
And it even applies to defects, like you mentioned, those cuts on the shoe leather.
Right. Deducing bad weather and a careless servant, a malignant boot-slitting slavey, as he put it.
He's reading the object's history. 6 parallel cuts on the left shoe, just where someone scraping off cake mud, probably after being out in vile weather, would carelessly nick the leather with a knife.
Parallel cuts mean repeated carelessness, not just one accident.
Precisely. Tells you about the environment, the upkeep, the person doing the scraping. It's all there.
That ability to build a whole story from these tiny overlooked details, it leads us straight into his core principles, doesn't it? The rules of pure deduction.
Yeah, and the big one, the absolute foundation, is rejecting preconceptions. You hear it quoted a lot, but maybe not always understood in its scientific sense.
That's the famous line, isn't it? It is a capital mistake to theorize before one has data.
That's the one. Because without facts, you insensibly begin to twist facts to suit theories instead of theories to suit facts. It's basically a warning against confirmation bias.
Which is what most people, even police sometimes, tend to do, right? Pick a theory, then look for evidence that fits.
Exactly. They go for the easy solution, the likely suspect, and then ignore anything that contradicts it. Holmes insists, collect all the data first, no matter how irrelevant it seems. Then use logic, elimination, probability to find the least wrong explanation.
Facts first, theory second. And if you stick to that, you have to buy into his other big idea. The little things are infinitely the most important.
Absolutely. And you see that perfectly with Miss Mary Sutherland, the client with the vanishing fiancé. Holmes looks at her clothes and instantly knows her mood, how fast she left the house.
What was it about the boots again?
Well, she was dressed neatly otherwise, right?
Yeah.
But the boots were slightly mismatched, different toe caps and barely fastened. One had only 2 buttons done, the other maybe 3, skipping some.
Nobody leaves like that unless they're in a massive hurry.
A frenzy, yeah. Barely aware of what they're doing. And then the ink confirms it.
The violet ink stain.
Yes. Her right glove was torn on the forefinger, and both the glove and her finger underneath were stained with violet ink. So she wrote a note. Quick-drying violet ink was common then, in a desperate rush, dipping the pen too deep after getting dressed.
So the boots show the speed, the ink shows the last frantic action, tiny errors, big picture.
And this reading of personal items gets pushed to the limit with that discarded hat. It basically becomes the guy's autobiography.
Yeah, that's a classic. He gets so much from just a hat.
It's fascinating. It combines simple physics with, complex behavioral guesses. First, the size. Came down low on the forehead, indicating large cubic capacity, big brain, high intellect.
Okay, physical dimension.
Then quality. 3 years old, but top quality originally. Suggests he was wealthy, but has fallen on evil days. Couldn't afford a new one.
Financial decline. But then he reads the owner's morals from it.
He does. It had a little loop for a hat secure. An add-on means the owner used to be prudent, had foresight. But the elastic was broken, not replaced. That implies a loss of that earlier prudence, a moral retrogression, he calls it. But crucially, he'd tried to cover up stains on the felt with ink. Clumsily, but he tried.
So he hasn't completely given up, still has some self-respect.
Exactly. Cared enough to try and hide the decay.
Okay, that's quite a psychological leap from some felt and ink. But here's where I always kind of pause. The deduction about the gaslighting. That the owner probably didn't have gas in his house, isn't that going a bit far? Feels less like data, more like a guess.
That's a fair point. And this is where Holmes sometimes shifts from pure deduction to what's called abductive reasoning, finding the simplest, most probable explanation for incomplete evidence.
Okay, so how does the gaslight fit in?
Well, the thinking probably goes like this. The ink stains used to cover the marks. Maybe they were unevenly applied, or perhaps there were tiny soot marks or oil residue near them. This suggests the cover-up job was done in poor light, maybe by candlelight or an oil lamp.
Implying no modern gaslight, which wealthier homes were starting to have.
Right. It ties together the other points. Fallen on hard times, poor maintenance, yet retains some self-respect, attempts repair under difficult conditions. It's not a guaranteed fact, but it's the most likely story fitting the evidence.
So, probable scenario, not proven fact. Got it. Still, if a hat reveals all that, imagine what happens when someone is deliberately trying to deceive, using identity itself as the weapon, which I guess leads us into the next set of cases.
Yeah, some of his most memorable cases aren't about murder at all, are they? They're about elaborate psychological fraud, manipulating appearance to create a whole fake person.
Like in A Case of Identity, Miss Sutherland again, and her vanishing fiancé, Hosmer Angel.
Angel is just designed for anonymity, isn't he? All the details seem crafted to hide who he really is. Only meets in the evening, wears tinted glasses, bushy whiskers and mustache, speaks in a whisper.
Blames the whisper on Quincy, the swollen glands. It all just obscures his real features.
Makes him hard to recognize, hard to describe accurately. Just a collection of concealing traits.
But the criminal, whoever he was, slipped up, made one key mistake.
The little thing, again, the note Hosmer Angel sent here. His signature. It was typewritten.
That's right, which is odd.
Very odd. Holmes nails it. Why type your signature? Because your actual handwriting is so familiar to the person you're writing to, even a tiny scrap would give you away instantly.
Which points straight to the one man close to her with a reason to control her life. The stepfather, James Windibank.
Bingo. Windibank was Hosmer Angel. Faked the whole romance, the dramatic disappearance, the motive, money. Miss Sutherland had her own income, accessible upon marriage.
So by creating this tragic lost love, Windibank keeps her devoted to a ghost, stops her marrying anyone real, and keeps control of her money.
Exactly. The disguise, the evening dates, the fake voice. It's all a long con to manipulate her future. Pretty chilling, really.
The sheer effort involved is just staggering. Contrast that with, say, the man with the twisted lip. The disguise there wasn't for control, but for profit. And it required a much more, well, physically repulsive transformation.
Oh, that was full of contradictions. Neville St. Clair, respectable city man, vanishes from this awful opium den in the East End. The scene looks bad. Blood, his clothes found, some kids' building blocks oddly left behind.
And the immediate suspect is this beggar who lives there, Hugh Boone, described as hideous, crippled.
Yeah, the police focus on Boone. But Holmes looks deeper. He notes that Boone's supposed weakness in one limb often means unusual strength elsewhere. And crucially, St. Clair's clothes are found, but not St. Clair himself.
So the disappearance isn't what it seems.
Not at all. The reveal is that Hugh Boone is Neville St. Clair. The disappearance was just him changing back. He discovered that begging, disguised as this repulsive figure, paid vastly more than his reporting job. Like 70 shillings a day versus £2 a week.
Wow. So he wasn't kidnapped. He just took off his beggar costume.
Pretty much. The opium den was his secret changing room. So vile, nobody would look too closely. It shows how far someone might go for easy money.
Incredible. Okay, one more identity case. The Noble Bachelor. Here, the deception happens right in the middle of high society, a wedding. Lady Hattie Dorn vanishes right after the ceremony.
Yes, during the wedding breakfast. And there's this immediate distraction. A woman named Flora Miller makes a scene. Seems like a classic jilted lover scenario.
But Holmes ignores the obvious suspect, Flora.
Right, he figures the bride's change of heart must have been sudden, triggered by seeing someone unexpected, someone with huge influence over her. And since she'd only been in London a short while, that person likely came from her recent past in America.
And the clue comes from the groom himself, Lord St. Simon, almost by accident.
Exactly. St. Simon mentions offhand that Hattie made a comment about claim jumping, a very specific American mining term.
Ah, connects her high society London life back to a rougher American past.
Precisely. Holmes links that to a mysterious American man seen briefly in the church. Turns out, Hattie Doran was already married to Frank A. Moulton. He'd been captured by Apaches, presumed dead, but turned up alive at her second wedding.
So he slipped her a note?
In the bouquet she dropped, yes. And she bolted with her real husband, the discarded wedding dress and clothes. Just a smokescreen.
Made it look like a struggle or immediate flight, buying them time to get away clean. Clever misdirection.
Okay, so moving beyond just faking identities, we get into these really elaborate schemes. Huge effort, bizarre cover stories, all driven by the prospect of a massive payday.
And you can't talk about bizarre cover stories without the Red-Headed League, right? The whole premise is just fantastic. This pawnbroker, Jabez Wilson,
With that blazing red hair.
gets paid £4 a week, a huge sum then, for basically doing nothing. Just copying the Encyclopædia Britannica because of its hair color.
The sheer absurdity of the job is the first big flag for Holmes. It makes no economic sense. He immediately focuses on Wilson's assistant, this guy Vincent Spaulding, who turns out to be the infamous John Clay.
And Spaulding provides several clues.
3 key things. First, he insists on working for half wages. That screams hidden motive, something more valuable than his pay.
Right. He wasn't there for the pawnbroker's money.
Second, this weird obsession with photography, always disappearing into the cellar to develop photos, gives him an excuse to be down there for hours.
Okay, motive and opportunity.
And third, the physical evidence. Holmes spots that Spaulding's knees are worn, stained, wrinkled.
From kneeling. Lots of kneeling.
Significant kneeling. Suggests digging, burrowing, as Holmes puts it. He connects the dots. The ridiculous job was just to ploy a time sink trap to get Wilson out of the shop for predictable hours every day.
While Spaulding, or Clay, was digging a tunnel.
It's exactly. From Wilson's cellar right into the vault of the city and suburban bank next door, planning a huge robbery over the weekend.
The Red-Headed League was just the elaborate theatrical way to control Wilson's schedule. Genius in a criminal way.
That mix of meticulous work and outlandish cover story is kind of a hallmark of these big financial crimes.
Now contrast that planning with the frankly brutal nature of the engineer's thumb. Starts with that gruesome injury, Victor Hatherley's thumb, just gone, hacked or torn off.
Yeah, this one's built on contradictions. Hatherley, an engineer down on his luck, gets this midnight offer, huge fee, £50, just to fix a hydraulic press out near Reading. But absolute secrecy is demanded. Blindfolded journey, the works.
The cover story starts falling apart immediately for Holmes.
The red flags just pile up, don't they?
Yeah.
Barred windows on the house, weird mix of German science and poetry books lying around, a terrified woman whispering warnings for him to run.
But the biggest lie was the machine itself.
The press, yeah. It was enormous, capable of immense pressure, way overkill for crushing Fuller's Earth, which is what they claimed they were doing. Fuller's Earth is basically soft clay.
So they needed that power for something much harder, more valuable.
Exactly. And the clincher for Hatherley was the metallic deposit he saw on the press bed when he looked closely. The place was being used for illegal coin counterfeiting, smashing, or pressing metal planks. They found loads of nickel and tin later.
And when Hatherley figured it out?
They tried to kill him, crush him in the press to keep him quiet. He barely escaped, losing his thumb in the process. The secrecy, the midnight run, it was all to hide this industrial-scale counterfeiting operation.
Okay, so sometimes it's not about immediate cash. Sometimes the crime stretches back years, driven by old secrets, old terrors that just won't stay buried.
And that brings us to the 5 orange pips, which is honestly one of the most unsettling cases just because the threat feels so relentless, so inescapable.
Yeah, that repeating pattern is terrifying. 3 generations of the Openshaw family get the same warning. A letter from abroad. 5 dried orange pips inside, and those initials, KKK.
Right. The first victim, Colonel Openshaw, had fled America after the Civil War. His diary mentioned the KKK using pips as a threat back in 1869. His death, ruled suicide. His brother's death, accidental fall.
But then young John Openshaw gets the same letter, And Holmes starts using, like, global logistics to track the source.
Exactly. He looks at the postmarks on the letters sent to the family members. Pondicherry in India, then Dundee in Scotland, finally East London, all seaports. And the key is the timing.
How long between the letter arriving and the person dying?
Precisely. From Pondicherry, it was about 7 weeks. From Dundee, only 3 or 4 days. The time perfectly matched the sailing time from those ports to England.
Meaning the killers were on a ship, traveling the world to hunt these people down.
It proved it. They weren't just mailing threats. They were delivering the consequences in person when their ship docked near the victim. The KKK wasn't one person. It was a society, relentlessly pursuing its targets across the globe.
Wow. And Holmes figures out the ship.
By checking shipping records against the dates and ports, he identifies an American ship, the Lone Star, sailing out of London for Savannah, Georgia. The name itself screams American connection.
But he's too late for John Openshaw.
Tragically, yes. Openshaw is murdered before Holmes can intervene. But Holmes gets a sort of final word. He mails 5 orange pips himself, addressed to Captain James Calhoun of the Lone Star. Signs it S.H.
Letting the killer know he's been identified, a taste of his own medicine.
Guarantees him a sleepless night, as Holmes puts it. A chilling end to a chilling case about the past reaching out.
Okay, so that's the past haunting the present globally. What about locally? The Boscombe Valley mystery ties a murder in the English countryside back to Australia.
Right. This starts with the son, James McCarthy, being the prime suspect in his father's murder. They'd argued publicly, and the father apparently called out just before he died near a pond.
It looks bad for the son. But the father's cry is the clue, isn't it?
It's everything. The word he called out was cooey. Holmes instantly flags that as a specifically Australian call or signal.
Something you wouldn't just yell randomly in an English wood.
Exactly. And the father thought his son was miles away in Bristol. So who is he calling cooey to? Someone who'd understand it. Someone from his past in Australia.
Plus, the father was hit from behind, which makes it less likely the son did it during a face-to-face argument.
Right. And Holmes also finds this faint impression of gray cloth near the body, which disappears later, meaning the killer dropped a cloak or coat and then picked it up again. He also notes these unusual square-toed boot prints.
So putting it together,
the father was meeting someone else from his Australian past. That someone was the wealthy landowner nearby, Mr. Turner. Turns out, McCarthy Sr. and Turner were partners in crime gold robbery years ago in Ballarat, Australia.
And McCarthy was blackmailing Turner?
Yes, and the blackmail escalated. McCarthy demanded Turner's daughter marry his son. Turner finally snapped during that secret meeting and killed him. The square-toed boots were Turner's. A secret buried for years, erupting in violence.
Okay, different kind of secret, different kind of betrayal in the Beryl Coronet. Here, the puzzle isn't just finding the truth, but understanding why the apparent victim is protecting the real culprit.
That's a great way to put it. You've got the banker, Mr. Holder, devastated. He finds his son, Arthur, holding the priceless Beryl Coronet, part of it broken off, 3 gems missing. And Arthur just clams up, refuses to defend himself.
Looks utterly guilty. But Holmes sees a flaw in that assumption, based on the object itself.
The physical properties, yeah. The coronet was solid gold. To break off that piece with 3 gems would take immense force. Holmes argues it would have made a noise, like a pistol shot.
Which the banker, a light sleeper, definitely would have heard if his son did it right there in the house.
Exactly. So Arthur couldn't have been the one who broke it there. He must have caught someone else in the act, struggled with them.
And the proof of outsiders comes from outside.
The footprints in the snow. Fresh snow, perfect evidence. 2 sets of prints leading away from the window. One belonging to Sir George Burnwell, known gambler, scoundrel, wore expensive boots. The other, a woman's.
The niece, Mary.
Right. Burnwell and the niece, Mary Holder, were in it together. Arthur caught them, likely struggled with Burnwell for the coronet, which broke in the process. But Arthur chose silence.
Why? To protect Mary?
Seems so, because he loved her, and maybe to shield his father from the public shame of the family betrayal. He took the blame, ready to face prison.
So Holmes figures this out.
Tracks down Burnwell, basically forces him to give back the stolen gems, buys them back for £1,000 each, a fraction of their value, and reveals the truth to the banker privately. Avoids a public scandal, saves the family's reputation, clears Arthur. Justice served, but quietly.
All right, our final theme gets into arguably the most dangerous type of criminal Holmes faced. The one using specialized knowledge, often medical or chemical, to commit crimes that are almost undetectable.
Yeah, turning science, especially the science of healing, into a weapon.
Yeah.
It's deeply unsettling. And the classic example, the one everyone remembers, has to be the Speckled Band.
The motive is just cold calculation, isn't it? Dr. Grimesby Roylott stands to lose his stepdaughter Helen Stoner's inheritance if she gets married, just like her sister Julia, who died mysteriously right before her wedding.
And the only real clues from Julia's death were her dying words, the Speckled Band, and this weird metallic clang she heard. Not much for the police to go on.
But Holmes finds these impossible details in the room where Julia died and where Helen is now sleeping.
3 crucial things. First, the bed is clamped to the floor, bolted down. Why? To ensure the sleeping person's head is always in exactly the same spot.
Okay, that's weird.
Second, the bell rope hanging near the bed, it's a fake. Doesn't connect to any bell, it's just there. And third, the ventilator grill between Helen's room and Roylott's room. It doesn't lead outside, it just connects the 2 rooms.
All very suspicious. And then Roylott's known interest in exotic animals from India comes into play. The cheetah, the baboon.
Exactly. The method was diabolical. Roylott trained a snake, a swamp adder, deadly, speckled, from India to climb through the ventilator, down the dummy bell rope, bite the victim sleeping below, and then return when whistled for.
And the venom.
Leaves almost no trace.
Yeah.
Just 2 tiny puncture marks, easily missed by a standard coroner back then. Instant death, chemically untraceable. The metallic clang, probably the sound of Roylott closing the heavy door of the iron safe where he kept the snake, or maybe retrieving it.
It's the perfect crime for a doctor with knowledge of obscure poisons and animal training from his time in the East.
Which perfectly illustrates that chilling quote Holmes uses. When a doctor does go wrong, he is the first of criminals. He has nerve and he has knowledge.
That knowledge lets them bypass normal detection methods. We see that again, maybe less famously, in The Dying Detective, right?
Ah, yes. Culverton Smith, the expert on rare tropical diseases, another medical man gone bad.
He murdered his nephew, Victor Savage. How did he do it?
With an obscure Eastern contagion delivered via a poisoned ivory box. It had this little sharp spring inside. When the nephew opened it, pricked his finger. That's all it took.
And Smith knew the disease would kill slowly, agonizingly, but look like a natural, if rare, illness. No trace of poison.
Exactly. The crime relied on the difficulty of diagnosis. But Holmes turned Smith's own expertise and vanity against him.
By pretending to be dying from the same disease.
Right. He fakes the symptoms, brilliantly stalls himself, uses makeup, sounds delirious. He knows Smith won't be able to resist coming to gloat over the great detective he thinks he's killed.
And in gloating, Smith reveals he knows about the poison box, the method. He incriminates himself.
Proving Holmes's point again. The nerve to commit the murder and the specialized knowledge to make it look like anything but. A truly terrifying combination.
Yeah.
Hashtag outro.
So looking back over all these cases, I mean, the pawnbroker copying encyclopedias, the Noble Bachelor's runaway bride, the beggar who's secretly a reporter, the doctor with the snake, the sheer range of human behavior is just kind of mind-boggling.
It really is. And so many of them, as you said, Mary Sutherland's fake fiancé, Neville St. Clair's begging career, Hattie Doran's escape, they aren't even technically crimes in the legal sense, but they're profoundly weird, deeply human mysteries that demand investigation.
It absolutely backs up Holmes's idea, doesn't it? That for strange effects and extraordinary combinations, we must go to life itself, which is always far more daring than any effort of the imagination. The really bizarre stuff isn't always the big headline crime. It's these smaller, personal, twisted situations.
Driven by greed or blackmail or fear or just elaborate deception.
And what we've seen running through all of this is that logic, pure deduction, rejecting theories before you have data, that's the foundation. But even the best system has a potential vulnerability.
The human element, the unpredictable factor.
Exactly. Which brings us to the one time the master reasoner really met his match. Irene Adler. A scandal in Bohemia.
The woman, as he always called her. He had the facts, he had the deductive system. He even pulled off that brilliant fake fire alarm to make her reveal where the compromising photo was hidden. His logic about how a woman would instinctively save her most precious item in a fire. Flawless deduction.
But she saw right through it.
She did. She recognized his disguise, realized the alarm was faked, and fled before he could retrieve the photo. Left him a note, basically saying, "Nice try." The King of Bohemia himself admitted how quick and resolute she was.
So pure deduction can predict patterns of behavior, but maybe not exceptional adaptive intelligence.
Precisely. Holmes's system worked best against criminals driven by predictable motives, greed, revenge, fear. Irene Adler was driven by her own wit and survival instincts. She was the anomaly, the one who adapted faster than his theory could account for.
Which leaves us, and you listening, with a final thought maybe. How often does success or failure in any field, crime, diplomacy, business, whatever, hinge on underestimating someone else's resilience, their determination, their sheer unexpected intelligence?
It's why she remained unique in his experience, the woman. She proved that even if you can deduce a man's life story from his hat or track killers across oceans, the greatest challenge to logic might just be someone whose mind is quicker, more adaptable than you anticipated. Sometimes adaptability trumps even the most brilliant deduction.